Welcome back to this course on how to grow our happiness. In the previous lesson, we learned about how controlling our thoughts and beliefs can impact our emotions. In this lesson, we will learn the other side of the coin of the mind-body connection and how our behavior can affect our emotions. In this lesson, we will focus on the power of behavior, what is conditioning, operant and classic conditioning, reconditioning, matching our behavioral to our new thinking, and scheduling fulfilling activities. Here I would like to mention the sponsor of the video, the Introjuicer app. Introjuicer is the place where all of us can meet together and create the community of friendship, support, and love that brought us here. Whatever connection you want to make in life, whether romance, friendship, exercise, gaming buddies, or anything else, the Introjuicer app has you covered. I, the creator of this course, am there, and I'd love for you to join me so together we can create something special. The link is in the description. In the previous lessons, you have learned a skill to control your thoughts and beliefs and reshape your reality. Once you get the hang of it, it really is like a superpower. Another way to reshape your reality is to reshape your reality. Let me explain. It's the B in CBT, which stands for behavior. Sometimes to change our reality, we need to act and change our behavior. Here's an example. Let's say there is an aspect of your appearance you are not happy with, and it brings you sadness. I would love for you to see your appearance as something that makes you distinct, unique, in a word, you. I would love you to believe that you don't need to be perfect, that perfection doesn't exist, and that no matter what we do, looks fade, and it's a mental journey of acceptance and inevitability we all have to face. Or you can get a new wardrobe or haircut, do some exercise, tone up, and grab a tan. It's coming at the problem from actions rather than fighting sometimes the uphill battle of thoughts. Another example is that you might think you have no talent. You're useless, unappealing, plain, boring, etc. I would love for you to find all the ways in which you are actually amazing and that we don't need to match all the talent we see in the media, and for you to realize you have intrinsic value. Or you can just start learning a musical instrument and grow some skills through hard work. What I'm trying to say is that changing our thinking is powerful and can truly change our reality, a lot of the time. At other times, changing your behavior can get the same effect. That's why it's called cognitive behavioral therapy. Sometimes the cognitive part is enough, and sometimes the behavior part is enough, but the combination of the two is really powerful. In the previous lesson, we talked about core beliefs. These in particular are very hard to change. One reason they are hard to charge is because we want to believe we understand how the world works. If we don't have a set understanding of these core aspects, life can be a scary place of uncertainty. So we subconsciously hold on to core beliefs that much stronger, but they can be shaped. For example, one core belief is how safe or unsafe the world is as a whole. This may cause us increasing amounts of anxiety if we believe the world is fundamentally unsafe and we are not strong enough to cope with the dangers. However, if we change our behavior and learn self-defense, for example, we may suddenly start to feel empowered. It may not change the way we see the world, but we start to see ourselves as capable of facing the dangers. Then the anxiety reduces, and we can live happier lives. Much of our reality is defined by something called conditioning, which is hard to budge through changing our thinking alone. Conditioning is kind of like programming that is baked in, hardwired, through experiences. In psychology, there are two main forms of conditioning. One is called operant conditioning, and the other is called classic conditioning. We will go through these now. Operant conditioning is a psychological concept developed by B.F. Skinner, which focuses on how behavior is influenced by its consequences. In simpler terms, it's about learning through rewards and punishments. When a behavior is followed by a positive consequence, reward, it's more likely to be repeated. Conversely, if a behavior is followed by a negative consequence, punishment, it's less likely to be repeated. This process shapes behavior over time, as both humans and animals alike learn which actions lead to favorable outcomes and which ones do not. For example, imagine a curious child reaching out their hand to the very interesting red-hot stove. that child is very quickly going to associate that red-hot stove with pain and danger. And that is operant conditioning. Classical conditioning is a psychological concept discovered by Ivan Pavlov, a Russian physiologist. It involves associating a neutral stimulus with an involuntary response to eventually evoke a similar response. In simpler terms, it's about learning to associate one thing with another. Pavlov famously conditioned dogs to associate the sound of a bell with food. Every time he gave the dogs food, he rang the bell. Food comes along, ring, ring. Eventually, the bell alone would be enough to make the dogs salivate in anticipation of food. Even without any food around, just hearing that bell would create a reaction within the dogs whether they had a thought or not. The same can be said for things in our life. Classical conditioning explains many automatic responses in humans and animals. For example, if you hear a specific ringtone, conditioned stimulus, and feel happy, conditioned response, because it usually means a call from a loved one, unconditioned stimulus. This is classical conditioning in action. Now, this is a little complicated, so stick with me. Sometimes there are things in life that act like that dog bell. We don't know what we're thinking, we don't know why we're acting a certain way, but there is something programmed into us that is causing a reaction. You've done the mindfulness, you've gone on the witch hunt, and still you can't figure out why you feel or act the way you do. It could be that something is happening on a subconscious or unconscious level. Just like Pavlov's dogs who learned to associate a bell with food, you might be associating something with another on a subconscious level. Here is an example. Imagine you're walking up to give a speech to a large group of people. Suddenly your hands start to get sweaty. Your heart begins to race. You're not thinking, but your awareness of the situation alone is enough for your body to shoot into overdrive. Now, in a situation like this, if we're lucky enough to realize what's going on, we can try to rationalize our thoughts. In this case, we might try to tell ourselves that we are jumping to a conclusion, but often rationalizing a conditioned response is like fighting an uphill battle. What is much more effective in this situation is a process called reconditioning. The process of reconditioning is like teaching your body to respond and react differently in certain situations. Reconditioning is a behavioral solution to many mental health concerns, such as anxiety or sadness. Here is an example for public speaking. One effective exercise to gradually change the conditioning of fear for public speaking is systematic desensitization. Here's how you can practice it. 1. Create a fear hierarchy. Make a list of situations related to public speaking that trigger fear, starting from the least anxiety-provoking to the most intense. 2. For example, A. Thinking about public speaking. B. Watching videos of others speaking publicly. C. Speaking in front of a small group of friends. D. Presenting to a larger group. E. Speaking at a public event. 3. Relaxation techniques. Learn and practice relaxation techniques such as deep breathing, progressive muscle relaxation, or mindfulness meditation. These techniques will help you stay calm during exposure to fear-inducing situations. 4. Exposure. Start by exposing yourself to the least anxiety-provoking situation from your fear hierarchy. Stay in that situation until your anxiety decreases significantly. Use relaxation techniques to manage any discomfort. 5. Gradual exposure. Once you feel comfortable in the first situation, gradually expose yourself to more challenging situations on your fear hierarchy, one step at a time. Take your time and only move to the next level when you feel ready. 6. Repetition. Repeat exposure to each situation multiple times until the fear response diminishes. Consistent practice is key to desensitizing yourself to public speaking fears. 7. Positive reinforcement. Reward yourself for facing your fears and making progress no matter how small. Celebrate your achievements and acknowledge your efforts. 8. Seek support. Consider seeking support from a therapist or joining a public speaking group where you can practice in a supportive environment and receive feedback. By systematically exposing yourself to fear-inducing situations and practicing relaxation techniques, you can gradually change the conditioning of fear for public speaking and build confidence in your abilities. Here is another example of reconditioning. If you find yourself with a fear of failure, try to hunt for 2 failures per day. They can be small or benign, but the act of hunting for the thing you fear and treating it as an exercise, as an experiment, for example, will have the effect of losing its power and control over your life. If every time you get to face failure, you mix in a sense of accomplishment that you faced your fears, regardless of the outcome, then very quickly you will condition in yourself a brand new response to that fear. It will become a much healthier response, and in this way you will be able to open yourself up to new experiences and overcome many more challenges which take you away from happiness. There are other ways we can use our actions or behavior to change our emotions, and in particular, build more positive emotions. Behavioral activation is the process of changing your behaviors to match your new thoughts and feelings, and to increase your engagement in rewarding and meaningful activities. Behavioral activation is important because it helps you break the cycle of depression and sadness to create a new cycle of happiness. But what are rewarding and meaningful activities, and how can we change our behaviors to do more of them? Rewarding and meaningful activities are those that give us a sense of pleasure, satisfaction, accomplishment, or purpose. They can be different for each person, depending on your interests, values, and goals. Some examples of rewarding and meaningful activities are spending time with friends or family, pursuing a hobby or passion, learning a new skill or knowledge, helping others or contributing to a cause, taking care of yourself or your environment, exercising or being physically active, relaxing or meditating, having fun or being playful. Rewarding and meaningful activities can help us to improve our mood, to reduce our stress, to boost our self-esteem, to enhance our relationships, and to enrich our lives. However, when we are depressed, we often lose interest or motivation in doing these activities, or we face barriers or challenges that prevent us from doing them. This can make us feel worse and reinforce our negative thoughts and feelings. That's why we need to learn how to change our behaviors to do more of these activities, even when we don't feel like it or when we encounter difficulties. How can we do that? There are many techniques that can help us with behavioral activation, but one of the most effective ones is called activity scheduling. Activity scheduling is a method of planning and organizing your time to include more rewarding and meaningful activities in your daily or weekly routine. Activity scheduling can help us to overcome procrastination, increase our motivation and energy, balance our responsibilities and leisure, and monitor our progress and achievements. How does activity scheduling work? Activity scheduling involves 4 main steps. Step 1. Make a list of rewarding and meaningful activities that you would like to do more of or that you used to enjoy before you became depressed. You can use the list that I provided, or you can come up with your own ideas. Try to include a variety of activities, such as social, physical, mental, creative, or spiritual ones. You can also rate each activity on a scale of 0 to 10, based on how much pleasure or mastery you expect to get from it. Pleasure is how much fun or enjoyment you get from the activity, and mastery is how much skill or accomplishment you get from the activity. Step 2. Make a weekly schedule that shows how you currently spend your time. You can use a calendar, a planner, or a worksheet to do this. Try to be as accurate and detailed as possible, and include all the activities that you do in a typical week, such as work, school, chores, errands, sleep, meals, etc. You can also rate each activity on a scale of 0 to 10, based on how much pleasure or mastery you actually get from it. This will help you to see how your current behaviors affect your mood and well-being. Step 3. Compare your list of rewarding and meaningful activities with your weekly schedule and look for gaps or opportunities to add more of these activities to your routine. You can start with 1 or 2 activities per week and gradually increase the frequency and duration as you feel more comfortable and confident. You can also look for ways to modify or replace some of the activities that you find boring, stressful, or unfulfilling with more rewarding and meaningful ones. For example, instead of watching TV alone, you could call a friend or read a book, or instead of doing the dishes, you could listen to music or do some stretching. Try to be realistic and flexible, and don't set yourself up for failure or disappointment. Remember, the goal is to do more of what makes you happy, not to do everything perfectly. Step 4. Follow your new schedule as best as you can and keep track of your mood and behavior. You can use a diary, a journal, or a worksheet to do this. Try to record how you feel and what you do each day and how they relate to each other. You can also rate each activity on a scale of 0 to 10 based on how much pleasure or mastery you actually got from it. This will help you to see how your new behaviors affect your mood and well-being and to make adjustments or improvements as needed. By following these steps, you can practice activity scheduling and see how it can help you with behavioral activation. But before we move on, I want you to do another simple exercise. I want you to choose one rewarding and meaningful activity that you would like to do more of, or that you used to enjoy before you became depressed. It can be anything, big or small, that makes you feel good or gives you a sense of purpose. Then I want you to write down when, where, and how you will do this activity in the next week. You can use the SMART goal framework to help you with this. SMART stands for specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. Done? Great. Now look at the activity and the goal you wrote down and ask yourself these questions. How do I expect to feel before, during, and after doing this activity? What are the potential benefits and challenges of doing this activity? How can I overcome or cope with the challenges or barriers that might prevent me from doing this activity? How can I reward or celebrate myself for doing this activity? Take a few minutes to think about these questions and write down your answers. You don't have to share them with anyone unless you want to. This is just for your own benefit. This exercise is an example of how you can practice behavioral activation using activity scheduling. By choosing and planning a rewarding and meaningful activity, and by anticipating and preparing for the possible outcomes. By doing this exercise regularly, you will be able to change your behaviors to match your new thoughts and feelings and to increase your engagement in rewarding and meaningful activities. So that finishes our subject on how we can change our behavior to grow our happiness. Just quickly, although this course is free for you, it was not free to get it to you. If I have helped you, all I ask is to think about supporting me with a small donation to a Patreon account or buying the book of this course on Amazon so you will have it wherever you go and on demand. The links are in the descriptions. Your donation can help me continue to create these courses and to reach others and spread the joy. Finally, although this course is free for you, it was not free to get it to you. If I have helped you, all I ask is to think about supporting me with a small donation to my Patreon account or grabbing my happiness handbook on Amazon. The links are in the description. Your help allows me to continue creating these courses, reaching others, and spreading the joy in every language.